us pray. Almighty God, the creator and ruler of heaven and earth, we beseech thee to inspire and guide all our actions, so that we may always walk in the path of justice, love, and charity to one another. Help us with thy grace to do only those things that promote the unity, peace, happiness, and prosperity of Nigeria in general and Lagos State in particular. Amen. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. You are all welcome to today's sitting. We apologize for the late commencement of today's sitting. Can we quickly go through the votes and proceedings of Monday, 21st January 2019? Page 832. Page 833. Honorable Tony Bravo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, page 833, under the column of announcement, column 3, sir. The constituency there, Lagos Mainland constituency, sir. There's a need to check that, the spelling of that constituency. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I have examined the votes and proceedings of Monday, 21st January 2019, and approval is here granted. Any message from the governor?
Right, Honorable Speaker, distinguished honorable members, there is no message from the governor.
Any other announcements?
Mr. Speaker, sir, there is no announcement.
Petitions?
None, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Matter of urgent public importance? None. Personal explanation? None. Reports? Honorable Shilogu.
Mr. Speaker, good afternoon. Distinguished colleagues, good afternoon. I'd like to bring to your attention last week on Friday, during the parliamentary meeting, there was great concerns were raised on the presentation, execution, and compliance of budget, especially 2018 and 2019. It was alleged that even warrant had been issued even for 2019 budget, and that the budget of 2018 also, the provisions were not complied with by the executive arm of government. After all of this discussion, the House thought it fit to now raise a committee to look into this and have meeting with the relevant commissioners and permanent secretaries from the executive arm of government. The membership of the committee is my humble self, as the chairman, Honorable LSHA, the chairman, House Committee on Public Accounts, State, Honorable Isha, the chairman of Economic Planning and Budget, Honorable Yinka Ogundemu, the chairman of Finance, and the chairman of Environment, Honorable Fafome, and the chairman of Committee on Works and Infrastructure, Honorable Tobun. We met with commissioners and officials of government, like the Commissioner for Budget, Honorable Banjo. We met with the Accountant General, the PS, Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget, PS, Ministry of Transportation, PS, Ministry of Agric, MD Lagos Board Services Limited, GM Lagos State Electricity Board, and Director of Budget. In his own submission, the Commissioner of Budget, Mr. Banjo, denied that any authority to incur expenditure had been issued in 2019. But the Accountant General was not around, so we had to ask, they asked for adjournment, and we asked for, they told us the date that will be convenient for them will be January 23rd, Wednesday last week, and on 23rd of January, they came with the Permanent Secretary, the Accountant General, and the Commissioner and other, like I mentioned earlier. When the question was put to the Accountant General, he affirmed that warrants had been issued for both recurrent and capital expenditure for year 2019. And he alluded to the fact that there is an existing law of Lagos State that allows this to be done, especially if they do not spend in excess of 25% of the preceding budget. They also affirmed that that the provisions of the 2018 budget, which vis-a-vis the special expenditure that the House passed, that says that if they are going to spend in excess of 200 million on certain projects, that is on transportation and what have you, they will write to the legislative arm of government to seek for further approval. That money had been used in excess of 200 million, running into billions and billions without a recourse to the House of Assembly. After all of these submission, we pointed out the fact that what the Constitution says in Section 121, which says that the governor shall cause to be laid before this honorable house the budget of the year before the end of the year, at least before December 31st, and that as far as the house is concerned, no budget had been laid with the house, and also the section, the law quoted, we asked the Accountant General and all the relevant officials to bring the law they are quoting. They couldn't lay their arms or hands on the law. We now had to bring out the Constitution, 121 and 122, that the so-called 25% is alien, is never in any law or the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Even if it is in any law, the Constitution as it is prevails. And the Constitution had stated in Section 1.3 that any law that is inconsistent with the provision of this Constitution shall be null and void to the extent of such inconsistency. And that the fact that they've not laid the budget, warrants ought not to have been issued. And on that same Wednesday, people started getting various alerts, that is to say, money had been spent. Money had been spent. It was not provisional, it was actually warrants on capital and recurrent. All of these points to one single thing from the findings of the committee. Like it's mentioned in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, grave misconduct. Grave misconduct is also punished by all of these, by this Constitution that we all swore to uphold during our swearing, which also the executive arm of government also took their oath with. It is a finding that for smooth running of government, there must be strict adherence to the rule of law, and also the constitution must not be violated by whoever is supposed to be the custodian of such a constitution. All of these we brought to distinguished honorable members for your deliberation, because it is obvious it's either you shape in, the shaping, or the ship out. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to follow up on what my Deputy Speaker has just recanted to the House from a special committee. During the budget appropriation process, 2018 budget, during the media 2018 review, there were several incidents of breach of the appropriation law that were observed. There were specific items in the budget, 2018 budget, that required approval of this House before they're expended, such as the UK LED, the street lighting, the bus expenditures, the rice mill, Oshodi interchange, and so on and so forth. These requests were not made to the House, but the funds were expended. In some cases, we hear that we only signed, they are implementing, but we have not paid. But I remember that law said categorically, before you commence or incur, those are breaches of the Constitution. Also, we observed certain misnomer, because budget approved, the sum approved, you will just notice that the variation, maybe a certain figure is approved, there will be variation without recourse to the House, and the contractor will be paid. It makes a mess of the entire budget appropriation process. We have issues of environment, left and right. We have issues where money resides in one ministry or MDA is being spent by another MDA without any recourse to this House, such that sometimes you have to be tracking who is actually spending the money and whose expenditure it is. Worst of all is we have what is called no objection. No objection means that even funds that were not in the budget, items that were not budgeted for, they were carried out because some agency of government issues no objection. Then there's something called AIE, Authority to Incur Expenditure, meaning that the executive rewrites the entire budget at the will. And the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended, Section 122, 123, subsection 3, 120, subsection 4, states categorically that it is the House of Assembly, via the appropriation law, will determine how expenses from the consolidated revenue account and any other funds of the state is expended. Now, you have a breach of the Constitution, which by all standard is what we call a misconduct, gross misconduct as a matter of fact. Well, I don't know, personally, I don't know if this government, this executive is tired of running, because what I see is that things are shutting down. Things are becoming slow within the economy, and people are looking at us as their representative, that what is happening. Mr. Speaker, I just said I should put that before you and my colleagues this morning.
I didn't get that.
I said, I said I should put that before you and my colleagues this morning, Mr. Speaker, this evening, as if you allow me to say, because if we are not moving forward, if the government is not running and we are having a shutdown, and like my Honorable Deputy Speaker even mentioned, he talked about Section 122 of the Constitution, whereby if the budget has not been brought to the Assembly, you cannot continue, you cannot, the section that requires you to spend 6 months of expenditure cannot kick in. If that section, because I heard some people saying, oh no, it can continue. I said, if the Constitution is not saying that they have to bring the budget, there's a big problem. Because what the executive is doing now is that they brought the budget late, intentionally, now it is not even here. And that section kicks in, you start spending, meaning that they don't even need to bring a budget. If they don't bring a budget, what would you have? They will continue spending money for 6 months. So, Mr. Speaker, I think breach of a constitution is gross misconduct, as I've said, and the penalty for gross misconduct within the Constitution is clear. Section 188 of the Constitution stipulates it totally. So if need be, Mr. Speaker, I think that section of the Constitution should be activated so that we can have a way for Lagosians to have good governance while we are still in this term. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
No, I don't.
Mr. Speaker, you still don't understand. All I'm saying is we should kick in the impeachment process, if need be. Mr. Speaker,
I'm listening. I'm coming back to Deputy Speaker. I want you to round up, but I didn't hear what you said last.
what I'm saying is that the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has been breached, and that is gross misconduct, Mr. Speaker. And as gross misconduct, there is only one way to deal with it. We have mentioned this severally, that these breaches were going on, and nothing has been done. And I don't see a situation where anything is going to be done. So if need be, we will kick in that section if the executive does not retrace their step immediately. That is what I've said.
Thank you. The Deputy Speaker said, shape it, or what do you call it? Honorable Tunde Ibrahim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one is grossly concerned about the manner of revelations that are churning out in recent times. So unfortunate that we all swore to uphold the content and tenets of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And when issues like this that appear to be direct affront, direct and flagrant disregard of the constitutional laid down provisions and procedures of governance, it is worrisome because we need to be very careful not to return to the anachronistic Stone Age where might was right. Now everything is governed in accordance with the stipulations of the Constitution of Nigeria. Section 120, 121, and other similar provisions of the Constitution clearly enunciate the role of each arm of government when it comes to financial estimates, expenditure, and necessary fiscal measures. So when we have people in government who are supposed to uphold this, who are supposed to guide whoever is taking what action in respect of this, and they are not doing what they're supposed to do. If you are not careful and we continue like this, it may mean that we are beginning to ebb on the precipice of destruction as an economy, as a people. So I want to say that I share the concerns, I share the apprehensions of my colleagues who have spoken earlier. And I want to say that the issues of gross misconduct that have been clearly highlighted before this Honorable House be closely looked into and necessary sanctions be applied. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Bisi Yusuf.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, members of this great house. Mr. Speaker, His Excellency is an accountant. 2001, he was acting auditor. 2000, Auditor General. 2005, he was confirmed by this noble house. And now the governor of the state. With his level of experience and involvement in the government, I don't think he should be ignorant of what the law says. And apart from that, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Governor is being surrounded by women and men of intellectual giants that they cannot claim that they know what the law says. Mr. Speaker, the deputy governor is an educationist, a PhD holder. We have a lawyer who is an international repute. We SEN. Then we have a commissioner for finance that we know him to be very reputable. And we have commissioner for budget and planning, an economist by excellence. All these cannot claim that they don't know what the law says. Mr. Speaker, what is really painful and baffled is that Attorney General is quoting law that's not existence in this very, that the law was not passed by this House and was claiming it to be the premises by which he lived his claim. Mr. Speaker, I think that one supposed not to be in office for an hour. A vote of no confidence to be passed on him. Not only that, all those lieutenants that not advising the governor to be right, they should be relieved of their post. They should find their way out. Because when you look at what is going on in Lagos State today, Mr. Speaker, nothing is working. Transportation system is shut down. Electricity is nowhere. Street light is not working. Even at Alausa, their sex area, there's no light there. Mr. Speaker, I think this is just an offense that is beyond pardonable. And I'm moved. It's my opinion that this is just impeachable offense for the Mr. Governor and Deputy Governor. And all those commissioners should find their way out. Thank you.
Honorable Lowo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleague, good afternoon. Mr. Speaker, our appropriation law is a law. It's not a budget, it's a law. And every spirit and tenet of that law must be adhered to religiously. Mr. Speaker, rewriting of appropriation law is an impeachable offense. Where items not on the budget is funded from any means is an aberration and it should not be condoned. Mr. Speaker, today, when you look at the length and breadth of Lagos, you can appreciate that it seems the government is shut down. Our roads are in precarious states. If you take a cursory look at Oshodi from Fatai Atere Junction, you can see that the pothole is as big as 6-story building. And further down to Agege, to Abulegba, all those axes, they are going through hell. Some of them, they will leave us as early as 4 o'clock.
Honorable Olowo, the report has to do with the budget. So let
Yes,
us
Mr.
limit
Speaker,
ourselves
yes,
to
the budget, because in that budget, there must be succession and continuity of projects. That's the spirit of that budget. But what we have seen today, that those are not followed. They are abandoned. They are not in the spirit and the tenets of the budget. Number two, Mr. Speaker, borrowing without the concurrence of the House to purchase whatever in the guise of anything is illegal, is impeachable. And today, Mr. Speaker, many contractors are being held and projects are not ongoing. And those monies are being diverted to what is not in the budget. So lately, somebody just talked about Ikeja here. Alausa, no light. IPP is being held. Even this assembly has one light. We have been on generator. If Mr. Governor is tired, I think it is imperative for him to resign. And I mean, he should resign. Because he is not forced to be our governor. And if he's tired of what he's doing, he should resign. Shekina, thank you.
Honorable Oshu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to commend my colleagues this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, sir, for me, I think when you apply for a job, when you are tired of that job, the easiest thing for you to do is to resign or just walk away. I think what the governor is telling us is fed up with his job, and I think I want to suggest for him, not just him, even the executive, the deputy governor, and the commissioners to resign. Mr. Speaker, fellow members, somebody was talking about the Attorney General. It's not just about the Attorney General, Mr. Speaker. We have Commissioner for Finance in this country, in this state. We have the Commissioner for Budgets. What are they doing? It's clear to us that they are not ready to do anything for the state again, and they should work. Mr. Speaker, in the last 3 years, the budget we are talking about, we are talking of 2018 budget. A budget is a law, and there is no mistake or I don't know in any law. As long as it's passed and it's signed, it should be followed. What we are saying is that the budget we've done, each time it goes back to the executive, they rewrite their own budget, and they make sure they don't follow it. Let's look at the MDs in first-line charges. In the last 1 year, in the last 2 years, none of the law, none of the stipulation of the budget has been followed. Is that they follow the previous year? And that means what they are saying to us and Lagosians is that they are above the law, they are above this house, they are above everybody that voted them in. The governor has a joint ticket with the deputy governor. So both of them are liable. The commissioners that are there, they are not doing anything to help the states. Mr. Speaker, if you go to LSHA today, all the MDs are shut down. If you go there, there's no light, there's nothing. In the course of doing oversight function, we realize that they cannot even work because when there's no light, the whole place is hot. And they can't afford to buy diesel because all their files are with the governor, and the governor is not attending to these files. I have an agency that told me when it came to PAC that he has over 40 files with the governor, another over 70 files, and none of this is being attended to. Mr. Speaker, if the governor is tired, it's better for him to make a walk. He can walk away, and I'm sure somebody else will do it. Thank you very much, sir.
Honorable Kasu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to toe the line of most members who have spoken. There is clearly a non-compliance with the rule of law. There's a lot of environment and unbudgeted expenses as mentioned earlier. And of course, this goes to show that the state in itself is getting to that point of a total shutdown. And as parliamentarians, I don't think we're here for no other reason than to checkmate such situations because we represent the people. And in this regard, Deputy Speaker mentioned shape in, shape out. Some other people made reference to some other statements. But I would say if he is tired, that's the governor and the rest of his cohorts, I feel like he should throw in the towel, or as a patient in an ICU, if he gives up the ghost, what happens? You pull the plug, you pull the life support, and it should just kiss this administration by, because we cannot keep Lagos on standstill just because someone somewhere and the rest of his colleagues are not bound to work. If he's tired, he should leave. Thanks.
Honorable Bankede.
Good evening, the Right Honorable Speaker and my colleagues. I think what we are discussing today has been happening gradually. It's not that we are not aware of what's happening, but government has its own way of taking its decision. I think this 3 years down the drain, and the executive cannot tell Lagosians that they don't know what they are doing. Last presentation, the budget the governor did here, everybody sees what is really going on, that the governor is getting tired gradually. But last year, it's obvious that the best thing is to show the governor and the executive the way out. They wrote a letter to the House of Assembly dated December 28, 2018. Instead of putting 2018 there, they put 2019 there. It shows they are all tired, including So what I'm saying is that these have been happening gradually, and the public are not deaf and dumb to what is happening in Lagos State, for that matter. Among the states that normally presented their budget is Lagos State. Even in most cases, we force the federal government to make a budget presentation and approve the budget. But this, since last year we had to ask the executive that we cannot continuously reordering budget. Rather, come up with your supplementary budget to approve. What we have, we approve, less than 6 months, you'll be calling for the House for reorder from infrastructure to works, from works to this, and then you make all the MDAs redundant without doing anything. Go to the public works today, they are not doing anything. We have over 37 roads in my own constituency, they're all abandoned. People are just taking several other long roads to even get to their destination. What government are we running? Go to LSHA, civil servants are just sleeping in their offices, doing nothing. Yet the public will think the parliamentary, they are not doing their job. What we are saying is that now the budget is not presented. How would they assess the fund? Even to pay the personnel costs, they must have, as our assembly must approve their budget before they start spending. What I want to say is that the Commissioner for Finance, Commissioner for Budget, the Accountant General, the Attorney General should be first of all give the pass of no confidence to them. And more importantly, the governor and the deputy governor should either resign. That's honorable for them, rather than we now commencing the impeachment process. Thank you very much.
Honorable, good evening.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Well, just want to speak to the report directly, which the Deputy Speaker, that happened to be the chairman of that ad hoc committee, have really stated out. Number one, you discover that various times we've been passing a series of warning in form of motions to this same executive, which has not been followed. There was a time we actually sent in a motion concerning the payment to one unknown organization from this house concerning the environment and the cleaning of the environment. As if we knew this would happen, but they refused to follow it, and eventually the result is what we are seeing outside. Everywhere is being littered, dirty, and the environment is no more conducive for anybody to live. And also, you discover that even in this report, the warrant of payment that was issued on both, not even on capital expenditure inclusive, which is not really having any basis in the budget. Looking at all these ones, and you look at various ISPOs that has been issued as well, not provided for in the budget, it shows that the budgets are not being followed. And the consequence of this is a breach of constitution, breach of law. And what else? The best way is for the people concerned to really resign immediately. Not really, that will be the best option for them. They should resign. So instead of really waiting for us to really invoke the aspect of that constitution, which we have the right to do anyway. So, but my advice is that they should resign so that we can really move this government forward. We cannot continue to be in this state of situation, and people outside will be looking at us, without explaining this as part of the system. But we have to really make it clear that there have been warnings, and that is the continuation of what we are doing now. At this point, I want to really agree with my colleagues that they are tired, the executives, and they should really resign and allow the new people that are ready to come in. Thank you.
Honorable Shola Giwa. Put off your light if you have the light. Put off your lights.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to commend the chairman of the committee and the entire committee for a thorough job that they've done. It is obvious that this is a matter of constitutionality and a matter of the law. We as parliamentarians took an oath of office, and that oath is to uphold the law. For me, we are bound by that oath of office that we took. The executive, as we can see from the report, have breached the law. So it is not about calling for resignation or what have you, even though that might just be in their best interest. But what happens to the law? If you breach the law, there are consequences. And the consequence of breaching this kind of constitutional law is for this House to set in motion a process of impeachment. And that is what I think we should be talking about. So thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Akode.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm just going to add my voice to the report we just received. There is no need for vehement. If there is any contingency, Section 123, subsection 1 and subsection 2 has already taken care of that. But rather for them to bring a supplementary budget, they indulge environment. Again, I don't think we have anything to say when they said they brought a budget. I don't think there is budget before this House, because the one leg of that section 121 says it must be laid, and once a budget has not been laid, we don't have any right to discuss or do anything on it. So there is no budget before this honorable House, and that is a gross misconduct. And in that wise, I think we should do the needful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. From the report read by the Deputy Speaker, it shows that there is gross violations of appropriation law passed by this House. Mr. Speaker, if you recollect, sir, last year we received refund from the Paris Club, and we also received refund from the federal government on some of the projects executed by previous governments. And these two funds was not part of the 2018 budget. I'm of opinion that before he can spend this fund, he need to come back to the House and seek for approval, in which the executive failed to comply with it, sir. I'm of opinion that the law should take its course on this issue, sir. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Jude. Put off your light, please. Agubiade, put off your lights. Okay.
Good evening, sir, and good evening, my colleagues. Well, for me, what have just happened based on the report that the committee have read, I want to thank the committee for being bold enough to tell us the truth and what they have observed. Sincerely, sir, the government of today, we are not moving forward from what I've seen. And apart from that, the fact still remains that we are a party. Our party is APC, and we are doing well. But, sir, the way it is now, the government is not putting us in a good light. We have opponents that are trying to fight us anyway through elections. In my constituency to start with, there are bad roads everywhere, hot roads everywhere. Sometimes I'm even embarrassed and they ask me, what are we doing? So, because indirectly, if these things are not corrected now, sir, there's a danger along the line. From my own perspective, sir, my opinion is this. No budget has been laid down before the House. I don't see the reason why they will not be incurring expenditure through warrant. Sir, besides, the key members of this cabinet, maybe the Attorney General, Commissioner of Finance, to Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget, and others, sir, like we rightly suggested, we will pass a vote of no confidence on them. But, sir, I think there is a rumor, I'll say it here,
there's a rumor not even established. That
What
Anyway,
rumor?
let me leave it there. Let me leave it there. Let me leave it there. Sir,
What rumor? What rumor? We don't discuss rumors.
sir, but I think the needful that will be done for me is to recommend an impeachment procedure because as far as I'm concerned, the present government is not doing well. Thank you.
Honorable Naim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to say that appropriation is a law, and a law must be adhered to strictly. Mr. Speaker, in a society where there is no law, there is no sin. But in a society where there is law, there should be punishment for the defaulters. I was listening to the Deputy Speaker. He was talking about warrants being issued, breach of operation laws, Oshodi interchange. An official said about Oshodi interchange. They're supposed to come out to the Lagos House of Assembly to come and seek for approval. We talk about the rice mill and all other things. Mr. Speaker, I think at this point in time, if they are tired of doing the work, I think they should resign. Mr. Speaker, during our oversight function, if you look at what the Commissioner for Budget, he brought out a book. He talked about construction of works ongoing. By the time we were doing our oversight function, we got there was nothing on site at all. The very people started the project at all. I'm talking about that again. If you look at another thing again, they will move from one ministry, they move money from one ministry to another ministry. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that if they are tired of this work, they should resign. Thank you very much, sir.
Honorable Lua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the committee for bringing this to our notice this evening. Mr. Speaker, for me, I would say this is a deliberate attempt for the governor not to have brought the budget.
Can you make use of the mic, please?
Sorry. For the governor not to have brought the budget to the House, for me, it is a deliberate attempt because nothing stops him to have brought the budget since October, November. And he is surrounded by an erudite lawyer, which I strongly believe they should have advised him on what to do. If you can see, the public works are not working, the LOMA, IPP, and even we in the House of Assembly, we don't have light. We have been running on generator. Mr. Speaker, I want to join my colleagues if it will be necessary for us to put our signatures together to send him out of office. He's not out of place. So thank you very much.
Honorable Adekunle. Can you put off your lights? If you have the light, please put it off.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues. Well, the chairman of the committee that was set up by this honorable house has given us a report. And based on the report and the addition that were made by some other members of the committee, here I refer to chairman of Budget and Economic Affairs and some others that have also contributed. I am of the opinion there's no need beating about the bush. It is clear there has been infractions, there has been offenses committed, impeachable one or ones for that matter. But I would rather stay with the view that the defenses that they put up, that is the commissioners that came to defend issues that were raised, are not tenable as far as I am concerned. And I wish to join others who have said that we cannot afford to allow matters to continue going the way they have been going. It's too dull for the state in terms of operations, and I think it is better for them to resign if the work is not easy for them to do again. Thank you.
Honorable Laiwala.
Mr. Speaker and my colleagues, I've patiently listened to the deputy speakers and his colleagues who have spoken about the job that we gave to them. It's clearly established that there has been abuse of constitution. It's clearly established that there has been infraction of Nigerian constitution. And we can equally say that sending without making a recourse to the assembly is unconstitutional. And we all know that it's an impeachable offense. Section 121 clearly stated that the government shall cause to lay the budget. And in a situation where our governor failed to do this, and he has been making a recourse to spending without the approval of this noble house, I think the best thing to do is to show him that we are really representing our people. 40 members who are elected by our people are not here for fun. We are elected to do our constitutional duty. And if he fails to do this, he fails to recognize the fact that we are elected by our people, I think the best thing to do is to let the governor as well as the executive know that we really mean business. Secondly, sir, the issue of the permanent secretary, who will believe that is a seasoned administrator, who knows the constitutional role of a permanent secretary when it comes to budgetary and its allocation, and who sworn on an oath that he will uphold the constitutional responsibility, coming to the committee and talking about the issue of 25%, which is unconstitutional, needs to be looked into, sir. It's not only the executive that are at fault. The permanent secretary, I think, should be brought to the book, sir. Thank you, sir.
Which permanent secretary are you talking about? Okay. Honorable Layode. Put off your lights, please.
Well, Mr. Speaker, thank you so much, sir. Let me also thank my Deputy Speaker for bringing this issue to our attention. Actually, I was just thinking that what is wrong, that maybe executive were passing the budget before bringing it to us. But to me today, with a lot of what I've heard from the Deputy Speaker, I think I also join my colleagues. Well, but the Constitution, I've rightly said it here. If you go to section 188, even it is more processing than what we are taking it so easy like this. But I think, I don't know what I will also call anything against impeachment again. It's very, very condemnable with what they have done so far. Also, Mr. Speaker, Yoruba will say...
you use the mic?
Yoruba will say, Mr. Speaker, sir, maybe Mr. Clark, this thing should be for way taller here, but I will bend, sir. Yoruba will say, Ejo ò ní jẹ́ ti ẹlẹ́jọ́ ká má dá, sir. So, Mr. Speaker, I want also to call some committees in this house, because this thing that we have been saying is since 2018, and we had first quarterly report, mid-year review report. All these things should have been given to us. Mr. Speaker, I trust you. If all these facts have been brought to us in this house of our assembly, I think we'll have done more than this. Because people should not be seeing us that maybe we are witch hunting anybody. But I thank the Deputy Speaker for bringing this to us. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Shokunle. Honorable, put off your light.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the report of the committee, it is clearly established that the the financial misconduct of Mr. Governor is at the extreme. And this is the time we need to be bold because we are representing the people of Lagos State. The punishment for financial misconduct is impeachment. I think it is better for us to start the process immediately. Thank you.
Honorable Musu.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Lagos has always been a trailblazer. Therefore, we must not relent on our efforts to give our people the best by way of continuous and efficient service delivery. But, sir, the situation on ground is an unfortunate one. And according to Section 121, subsection 4B of the Constitution, that the appropriation bill should be laid before the House and approved by the House. But now, sir, the question is, was any appropriation bill laid at all in the House? And in view of this, the government is not authorized to spend any money except for purposes approved by the House. My colleagues have said a lot on this matter, and I think I want to toe the line because this is an abuse of office and is an undue influence by the governor. And I think we should start maybe the notice of impeachment, and if I may add that maybe we should pass a vote of no confidence on the Attorney General and some of the executives. So I think with this, maybe they will see the signal that we are not in the House of Assembly, we are not rubber stamp, and that we know what we are really doing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I listened attentively to the report of the Deputy Speaker this afternoon, and all that echoes to me basically is that we're parliamentarians and we have a duty to our constituents. We're the voice of the people of Lagos State, and we're the ones that have oversight functions to make sure that the executives are doing what they're supposed to do. We talk of transparency, accountability, and so on and so forth. We don't see it at the present time. I looked at the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Section 121 and 122. And it is clear that in Section 121, subsection 1, it says, the governor shall, and I repeat, honorable members, shall cause to be prepared and laid before the House of Assembly at any time before the commencement of, of each financial year, estimates of the revenue and expenditure of the state for the next following financial year. He shall cause to be prepared and laid. Let me emphasize that. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, Section 122 only talks to if the appropriation bill, this appropriation bill comes into existence when the governor causes to be laid before the House of Assembly, that estimate, the budget, and then when it's dropped in the House, it becomes the appropriation bill in respect of any financial year. And it says if that is existing, then you can now spend 25%. Let me save you the headache of reading it all through. But it says that you can do that for a period not exceeding 6 months. But it doesn't follow here. And the reason why I say it doesn't follow here is that unless we were absent at that laying of that budget, which I'm sure we were not, then we cannot spend what we do not have. You cannot build something on nothing. We cannot take money that does not belong to us. It's not only we're talking about misappropriation of funds. There are many other names that it can be called. But honorable members, I think that we need to forward to the governor these infractions. You know, my colleagues have spoken a lot the Deputy Speaker spoke about what they discovered from the committee investigations. The PAC State Honorable Oshun spoke about more infractions. The Chairman Finance Committee Honorable Gudimu spoke about even more infractions, and so on and so forth. Honorable BC Yusuf went ahead to say that we should even pass a vote of no confidence on the Attorney General, on the Commissioner for Finance, on the Commissioner for Budget, and so on and so forth. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, it's clear there's a problem. There's a very big problem. And if we do not let the law take its course, then it becomes our problem. And I think that after 16 years of being a legislator, I would not advise us to carry the problem that doesn't belong to us. I feel that the people that are supposed to give the governor advice have failed in their duties to give the governor advice. More so, Mr. Speaker, the buck ends at his it stops at his table. Governor, deputy governor, what have you. They are the ones supposed to take the responsibility on their head. But then we're going to have to share people's problem for them, because the Attorney General cannot put his own problem on top of the governor's head. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to adopt the briefs of my other colleagues on every single thing that they have said here this afternoon, because we are parliamentarians and we owe a duty to our people to do what is right, particularly the taxpayers that are paying money into the covers of the government should know what their money is being used for. Thank you.
Honorable Satonji.
The Vice President Speaker and my colleagues, I listened with rapt attention to the rendition of the Right Honorable, the Deputy Speaker, and I was, really surprised that things have generated to that extent. The infractions are too numerous and grave, and my colleagues have adequately addressed those infractions, those issues. For that reason, I want to align my view with the position of my colleagues. And I want to see that there's a problem on the ground, and we need to do what is right, or else we take what does not belong to us, which is we are not at the executive arm of government, so they will be held responsible for whatever actions and inactions that have brought this to the state. That's my contribution.
Akim Bello. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since the governor and the deputy governor, they violated the appropriation law, I will advise the governor and the deputy governor to tender their letter of resignation without prejudice. Thank you, sir.
That is very direct and key. Honorable Fafumi.
Right Honorable Speaker, fellow members, I must say that this afternoon, I'm a very sad man. I'm sad because of the revelations and things that the Deputy Speaker, and more importantly, what I heard during our interaction with the executives. Mr. Speaker, the business of governance is not based on sentiment. It is based on law. And when you look at what is happening in our state, among other things, every governor, every executive, every public office holder should always look at the Constitution as his guiding Bible. And for a governor, Section 120 of the Constitution that talks about the powers and control over public funds, it's so germane. The public fund does not belong to all of us seated there. The public fund does not belong to the governor, nor the deputy governor, or any of them. It belongs to the over 20 million Lagosians who have chosen us and put us in trust over these funds. Having listened to my colleagues and everything that have been said today, I'm of the view that when you look at Section 120, especially 120 sub 2, with your kind permission, it says, no money shall be withdrawn from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the state, except to meet expenditure that is charged upon the fund by this Constitution, where the issue of those monies has been authorized by an appropriation law, supplementary appropriation law, or law passed in pursuance of Section 121 of this Constitution. Section 121 was clearly highlighted by Honorable Tejosho when a budget is to be presented and how it is being laid as a condition for you to even expend that 25%. We've all seen that even as at now, that 25%, we have not met those constitutional requirements, even the financial regulation that stipulate, because the Constitution did not stipulate 25%. The financial regulations and other laws that are made pursuant to the provisions of this Constitution. Now, when you look at all these violations, it amounts to something which most members have clearly stated there. It amounts to nothing but gross misconduct. And what is gross misconduct? If you look at Section 188, sub 11, it tells us that gross misconduct means a grave violation or a breach of the provisions of this Constitution, or a misconduct of such nature as amounts in the opinion in the House of Assembly to gross misconduct. And what are we here debating? We're debating this issue here today because we strongly believe that essential services that are supposed to be met is missing in Lagos. We know what is happening to our Loma. Even the intendment of setting up Loma is to make sure that we have public participation in ensuring that the infrastructures of the state.
Just limit yourself to budget issues.
Mr. Speaker, fellow members, I am in tune and in line with the statement and decision of every member that has spoken here today, that if the executives are not ready to continue, if they are not ready to do the business of governance, they should either resign, and if such is not done, we probably will commence the impeachment process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I don't know why we flogging this issue. Someone said earlier that in a land where there is no law, there is no sin. We have the 1999 Constitution there. None of us in this room, we did not write the Constitution. So it's stated clearly there. If there is an offense and there is punishment alongside with it, so be it. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Famakiwa.
It's so disheartening and so worrisome that the state is finding itself in this quagmire. having listened to some of my colleagues, and also having listened to the deputy speaker, who has given us insight into what has really transpired in the run of the state, I will have no any other option than also to toe the line of my fellow colleagues who have also reasoned that all those conduct amounted to an impeachable offense, which I stand with. And I also want to say here that in view of that, without delay, we should activate the impeachable process right away. Thank you.
Honorable Sholaja.
Let me first of all appreciate Mr. Speaker. From Mr. Speaker to the committee set up by Mr. Speaker, deem it fit necessary to have a tete-a-tete with the executive. Well, the issue on ground is that for me, for the clarity purpose and for public to know what is exactly transpired, what is budget? A budget is a financial instrument that analyzes, interprets, control, and monitors the financials, the income and expenditure of a particular state within a year. Within a year is January 1 to 31st December of any fiscal year. Now that the budget that's supposed to be presented since 18 years ago, the Lagos State have been presented a budget between October and December, and usually approved estimate to become appropriated budget in January. It has been violate that. And apart from that, my colleagues have said a lot about the law that guide this establishment of the budget, section 121, from 120 to 121, 22 to 123. And also, if you look at it critically, the peaking period of the revenue and expenditures is between January and October. Now that the budget have not even presented now, I wonder what will happen in 2019. For that, they have built the conduct. I mean, the financial regulation is also their financial memorandum. There is the Bibles of financial transaction in Nigeria. It's also breached. The constitution is also breached. For me, I'm going to toe the line of my colleagues. That is, if they cannot resign, the House should do the otherwise by starting the process of impeachment. Thank you.
Honorable Jimmy Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Firstly, I'd like to commend the committee headed by the Deputy Speaker, and also to toe the line of every other member that has spoken here today. What has struck me the most is the fact that capital expenditures have been invoked by virtue of a warrant. In a situation where you do not have a budget, or rather, there hasn't been a presentation of a budget to the House of Assembly, and warrants have been invoked, this is a total and flagrant abuse of the Constitution. These are referred to gross misconduct, which are impeachable offenses. And to that end, I believe the course of law should be made to take effect. Thank you.
I didn't even hear anything from what you said. It was as if you are rapping to yourself. I didn't hear a single word I didn't know.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What I was trying to say, firstly, I said I wanted to commend the Deputy Speaker, who was the head of this committee, and I want to toe the line of all the honorable members with respect to what has been said on the floor. And I said more so is that what has actually taken me aback is the fact that warrants were being invoked without recourse to the House of Assembly, or rather without even a presentation of a budget to the House of Assembly. To this end, this is what is referred to as a gross misconduct, and is they are of impeachable offenses. To that end, I'm of the opinion that the course of law should be made to take effect. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Goyebe.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, I want to say that what we have before us this afternoon is an issue of flagrant breach of the stipulations of the appropriation law. Mr. Speaker, I want the public to be told that this House actually gave the opportunity to the executive arm to defend itself by way of inviting the key officers around the issue of appropriation to come and explain certain infractions that this House has noticed. A review of a previous year's budget is a precursor to the approval of an incoming budget. And 2018 budget, by our observation in our various activities at committee level, shows that that budget underperformed. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, as at third quarter of 2018, that budget has not performed 50%, as indicated by the complaints from the various ministries, departments, and agencies of their inability to access their funds. And I think the report of the Deputy Speaker-led committee has clearly and unambiguously enunciated all these infractions that we observed in the 2018 budget. My opinion, Mr. Speaker, is that all these infractions be communicated to the governor of the state for his reaction. If he is not adequately able to explain to the satisfaction of the House of Assembly about those infractions, he should then be advised to resign, failing in which the House will have no option than to ignite the instrument of impeachment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Dunton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like Honorable Fafumi said, today I am not happy at all. Why am I not happy? When you say Lagos State is a pace setter, like Honorable Mosumola said, and such things are happening. Sometimes last year I had the opportunity to sit at one of the committee meetings. Within 30 minutes, I had serious headache.
Dunton, please limit yourself to the
It's part of it, sir.
budget. Just
And,
go straight to the budget.
Why? People, the executive, they just move money from one ministry to the other without recourse to the House, with total disregard to the budget passed by this House. In effect, so many of the very important ministries are suffering. Today, I was at LSHA. Go and visit our LSHA, that people we are always proud of. LSHA is
Honorable
shadow of itself.
Dunton, leave lawsuit out of this. Talk about
Well,
your budget.
some of
And we
these,
don't want to do.
when all these things are happening, and you move money without recourse to the House, you execute projects with total disregard to the budget passed into law on this House, this is not good enough. And I want to toe the line of Honorable Ogunyemi and Honorable Badagri, Layode, that we should, first of all, write to the governor, set out all these things he has done, and if we don't get a suitable reply or favorable one, then the House can commence impeachment process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Gumadu.
Right, Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues. I wish to observe that there are three arms of government, of which the executive arm is just one. If there are problems in the executive arm, it does not amount to shutdown of the entire government. Our government is still running, it's not shut down. What we are doing today is to ensure that the infractions by the executive does not affect the entire arms of government. And Mr. Speaker, it's so surprising that this is the first time, to the best of my knowledge, that the executive arm has breached the provision of the Constitution and the tradition of ensuring that the budget is prepared and laid before the Assembly, before the commencement of a new fiscal year as enshrined in the Constitution. I also want to observe, Mr. Speaker, and that is why we have to commend the leadership of Mr. Speaker for the large heart and magnanimity in managing some of these infractions as observed earlier by the various committees. What I think we are addressing today is the continuing impunity with which these are being done. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues have addressed all the issues. Particularly of note is for us to let the public know that as we speak and as provided by the Constitution, we do not have the budget by the executive before the House. And if the energy that has been expended by the executive in covering up the inability to present the budget in the media is channeled towards addressing this issue, I'm sure by now we should have moved beyond this. Mr. Speaker, three suggestions have been made. One, that the commissioners who were appointed by the governor, approved by this House of Assembly, to support the activities of the governor, advise him, and serve as lieutenants, should be treated as those affecting these infractions, should have vote of confidence passed on them. Mr. Speaker, I want to think that that should be immediate at this sitting. The vote of confidence, vote of no confidence, having believed in the report and the investigation acumen of the committee as recommended, what has happened, they have failed in their responsibilities, and I'm talking about the Attorney General, Commissioner for Justice, I'm talking about Commissioner for Budget and Planning, I'm talking about Commissioner for Finance, I'm talking about, I've mentioned it. These are the officials that are directly connected to the budget. Mr. Speaker, two other suggestions were made. The first one is for His Excellency to resign, and the other one is commencing the impeachment proceeding. Mr. Speaker, I think we can set these procedures seriatim. And what I mean, Mr. Speaker, is with the suggestions that have been made, a letter showing these infractions be communicated to the governor and advising that it will be in the interest of the state and dignifying for him to resign, failure of which we can now commence collection of signature to do that which the Constitution provides to be done in street cases of impunity and gross misconduct. Mr. Speaker, what we are doing is alive to our responsibility by the Constitution. We are to pass budget. We have to monitor the budget. We have been monitoring, and we see that there are a lot of constraints. So today, Mr. Speaker, we must not allow that to continue, and that's why we have subjected this to consideration. And I want to commend all my colleagues for the suggestions they have made. Mr. Speaker, I stand by you. Thank you very much.
Honorable Abiru.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, fellow members. A lot has been said by my colleagues, and I cannot but just adopt what has been said without wasting much time. Clearly, there has been some infraction on the part of the governor and his team on the appropriation law. And the procedure to address such infraction is very clear in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And I think it is just right and proper for us to invoke that section of the Constitution to commence the process of impeachment against the governor. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Wahab Jimo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I'm aware that we are not here on our own volition, and I also endorse I endorse the submission of my honourable colleagues. However, Mr. Speaker, I saw this coming like an ocean surge. If you recall, Mr. Speaker, honourable colleagues, the Attorney General of the state wrote a letter to this honourable house withdrawing a private member bill that is before the house, a private member bill. But we told him then that it was wrong. He hardly agreed that the process was wrong. And it was too early at the beginning of this government to be going into that matter, whether it is wrong or not. From there, if somebody did not agree that what he did was wrong, he wrote a letter to the honourable house withdrawing a private member bill, not executive bills, private member bills, and was so arrogant about that. Is then I've been noticing that we are in crisis. Mr. Speaker, these offenses are just too much. The tradition is seriously lacking. There is need for a striking example. From this gross misconduct, we can count from violence, from digging out into special expenditures. Not only that, the appropriation bill that has not been presented before the Honourable House, they have been, tampering with it, spending it. And the report that I stole from the Deputy Speaker, I discovered that the 2019 budget too, that has not been before the House, they are already implementing it. It means there is another chamber at the governor's office in which all these things are operating. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I think if we leave error uncorrected, as Ernesto Che Guevara will say, it's a system of encouraging intellectual immorality, and it's too dangerous for the 22 million Lagosians. So, Mr. Speaker, I endorse the submission of honorable colleagues that have spoken earlier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, I want to thank all of you for your observations and comments. And it's strongly difficult for me to close my ears to all you have raised this afternoon. There's no doubt that there have been violation of our appropriation law and infraction on the constitutional provisions. As we all know, we know the consequence of these offenses. And I must also agree with you that the Attorney General, the Finance Commissioner, and the Budget Commissioner, who are supposed to know better and inform the governor adequately or advise in such manner that will have saved them from all these violations, probably have not done so. But I agree with you. Many people have asked for resignation of the governor and deputy governor or impeachment process be commenced, and vote of no confidence on the commissioners we have mentioned. We just want to say that even in Garden of Eden, there was fair hearing for Adams and Eve, as Jimo will always say, and even for Satan, he was granted fair hearing. I think the most important thing that we have to shed light on was what happened last Monday, which the budget was supposed to be presented. But we were informed of impunity that has taken place before the budget, which has just been emphasized now. A budget that is yet to be presented before the House. Warrants have been issued, expenditure being incurred, and I wonder why we need to sit on such budget. Because the essence of a budget is to guide the executive on what to be expended within a given year. And it is based on the approval of the parliament. And where there's no approval and expenditure have been incurred, well, I wonder why we need to sit on such budget. But as I've said, there's fair hearing anywhere. And we must consider and give them fair hearing to come and explain. Because the reports given by the the deputy speaker to find out what the excuse is that they are entitled to certain percentage of the budget while the budget is still undergoing approval process. But the point has been made by Honorable Ted Osho. There must be something before the House. According to Section 121, the budget must have been laid before the House before you can commence any form of expenditure. Before you can commence any form of expenditure. Now we have nothing before the House. But I just want to appeal to us that let us call on the governor as suggested by some of us, and those commissioners who were invited and they were not around while the committee had the city to come. So within a week, we can get back here and do whatever. Those who have been clamoring or who have asked for impeachment, our advice, you can start gathering your signatures if that will be the end of it. And if at the end of the day, there is need to consider the whatever response from them, then we can as well move forward. I share your sentiment and I quite agree with you. I'm passing a budget that they've started incurring the expenditure over will amount to effort in futility. So I just want to appeal that let us exercise patience for now. I will take it up, see what we can do. And I thank you, Deputy Speaker and his team, for doing a thorough job on this assignment. I want to assure you that your efforts will not go in vain. Thank you very much. Yes. Business of the day. Majority Leader, can you please adjust your items on other paper?
Mr. Speaker, in view of time having been spent, may I humbly move that item B under the business of the day be stepped down till another day, leaving us only with item A, which is laying of report. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Kasunu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I raise the second motion as moved.
All in favor say aye. Those against nay, the ayes have it. Majority Leader. Okay, laying of reports. Honorable Ted Osho.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good evening, honorable members. I stand before you to lay the report of the Committee on Information, Security and Strategy on a bill for a law to amend the Lagos State Security Trust Fund Law, Chapter S5, Laws of Lagos State, and for connected purposes. I so lay.
Majority Leader.
Distinguished colleagues, having come to the end of today's proceeding, I have the approval of the Right Honorable Speaker to move that this House adjourns till Monday. Excuse me, sir. Thank you, Mr. Clark. That the House adjourns till Monday, the 4th day of February at noon. I so move.
Honorable Lobo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion as moved.
All in favor say ayes. Those against nay, the ayes have it. This House stands adjourned till Monday, 4th February 2019 at 12 noon prompt. I rise.